All right, so I hope you can all hear me, and very welcome to this WASP webinar on AI and Industrial PhD program. My name is Anders Indeman, and I will be chairing this meeting. And we have a lineup of interesting people who will speak. Before we start this webinar, I would like to inform you about a few practicalities about the webinar. The program in itself will be 90 minutes of presentations from various key people in the organization. Plenty of room for questions and answers afterwards. I would ask all who have joined now, please mute your microphones, and you do that in on the left-hand side where you have your microphone symbol. Please mute that so we avoid disturbing background noise during the presentations. And also turn off your cameras to conserve bandwidth so that people can join in. We're more than 100 people here today, which is very exciting for all of us, but also stresses the technology to the limit. Now, if you have any questions that you would like to post during the Q&A session, please announce those by typing a chat message, and then we will unmute you and let you post your question. And during the questions, we will keep track of the questions that are coming in, and they will be answered in the order that they appear in the chat window. I should also say that the slides and the recording of the webinar will be made available on the WASP webpage as soon as possible after editing of the recording of this. Now, the program in itself will be myself giving a brief introduction together with Danica Krajic, who is our AI representative in the program. We will then have a general presentation about the Industrial PhD program from from Lund. And then we will have a special presentation of the WASP AI Graduate School by from Örebro. And we will get perspective from people with hands-on experience of supervision and being industrial PhD students from Sala Franzén and Sivan Silan from SEB. And then we will have the Q&A session and eventually a wrap-up. We will see how long this will take us. I think we have ample of time to cover this program and also the Q&A. If we start off with a little bit of an overview of the WASP program, we're very proud to announce that it's the largest individual research program in Sweden ever, with currently a budget has been increasing over the years, and at this point is reaching 5.5 billion Swedish kronor. And the duration of the program has now been extended up to 2029. And the Wallenberg Foundation is contributing with 4.2 billion Swedish kronor, and then we have matching funding from universities and from industry. There are two main sentences that are defining the WASP program and has stayed with us from the very beginning of WASP. It's the vision about the excellent research and competence in AI, autonomous system software for the benefit of Swedish industry. And our mission, that is to build a world-leading platform for academic research that interacts with leading companies in Sweden, develop knowledge and competence for the future. Now, this is really boiled down into a number of initiatives, and the main instruments that we have in the WASP program today is, of course, the thematic research program that is addressing strategic challenges that we have identified. But one of the aspects of the program that has been really expanding over the past year is the recruitment of both researchers and young researchers come and join us in the Swedish setup. We also have a graduate school in very close interaction with Swedish industry, and we have key collaborations with a number of international parties, such as Berkeley, Stanford, and NTU in Singapore. There are also arenas called the VARA arenas, the Wallenberg Research Arenas, for research and demonstration in collaboration with industry and other parties. Now, if you look at the outcomes of WASP, of course, there will be a lot of interesting results coming out in the production of research results, demos, publications, and products. But I think a consensus is that perhaps one of the most important outcomes and that has the largest impact on society and our mission is the production of PhDs, qualified people with research competence that are both contributing to the academic development, but also contributing to the betterment of the Swedish industry. So, so we are working with all of these instruments, with the competence build-up, the human knowledge transfer, PhD students, postdocs, faculty recruitments, and the goal is to have 400 PhD students with at least 100 industrial PhDs, which is of course the focus of the presentations today. Now, currently 246 PhDs, 79 of those are industrial PhDs, and we're now shooting at 60 new faculty, and currently we have managed to recruit 27. Just a few numbers for you to have in the back of your heads about the size and the ambition of the WASP program. It could also be of interest to you to get a little bit of an overview of the organization that's populated with a large number of people ranging from the WASP board of directors, where we have key people from the university administration, from the funding organizations, and from industry. It's chaired by Sarah Moser, who is working for the Wallenberg Foundation. And then under the board of directors, we have the program directorship, Lars Nielsen, who is the program director, and myself being the vice program director, stepping up on the 1st of July this year to take over the role as program director. Then if we look at the part that is the autonomous systems component, it's chaired by Karl-Erik Åsén, who will appear in a while talking more about the industrial PhD program. Then we have the WASP AI program, where we have Danica Krajic, who will speak just after me here, and we also have Johan Håstad, who's responsible for the mathematics parts of this program. So just a few of the key people, a handful of the very large number of people engaged in operating. May I ask anyone who is currently unmuted to mute your microphones, because we can hear you speaking. Thank you very much. And of course, today now we're adding the WASP AI component with the industrial PhD students, and we're very excited about this opportunity. I would also like to put in a little bit of a plug for a report that some of you may have seen already, but it really relates and underlines the WASP commitment to providing resources to conduct research in artificial intelligence and machine learning. And this report has emanated in the funding of a national resource for machine learning that is going to be hosted by the Swedish National Infrastructure for Computing, and integrated in the Chalmers Gothenburg setup of service provision to the community. And hopefully towards the third quarter of this year, this resource will be available for general use, and it's going to be a significant addition to the possibilities to conduct advanced machine learning research relying on infrastructures. So with those words, I would like to hand over to Danica to inform us a little bit more specifically about the WASP AI initiative. So Danica, you're on.
Thank you, Anders. My name is Danica Krajic, and I'm going to present the machine learning part of the AI initiative. There are four main focus areas for the machine learning research in AI, and these are presented on the screen: presentation learning and grounding, sequential decision making and reinforcement learning, learning from small data sets, GANs and incremental learning, and multitask and transfer learning. These are in detail described also on the web page for WASP, for those that want to get a little bit more detailed insight of what the titles stand for. Now, what is important for WASP in general, but in particular for the machine learning research and AI research in WASP, is that we want to build a strong research base, primarily nationally to start with, by conducting fundamental research and addressing fundamental research questions in machine learning and AI. And to make sure that we also conduct research on the absolute highest international level, something that we want to achieve through the outcomes of the scientific work is to publish at the absolute top tier conferences and journals in the area, such as NeurIPS, ICML, ICHCAI, ICLAR, and the like. A big portion of the AI research, or almost half of it, is also in the area of mathematics, but with a focus or development of methods, mathematical methods for AI and machine learning in particular. This has been motivated by the fact that many of the methods today that are used in this area are not fully understood. They work and perform well, but we don't always understand why. And the idea is to then conduct basic research in the area of mathematics to better understand both the methods that already exist, but also spend time on developing new methods for the same purpose. So first, we want to explain what we already know, and then improve in order to be able to provide a deep understanding and thus develop also new theoretical ground. Currently, we have both academic and industrial PhD students in this area, and to give you a little bit of an idea of the topics of ongoing projects in the area of AI, you can see them listed on the slide. So as you can see, it's everything from basic statistical methods, incremental learning, deep learning, probabilistic methods, generative models, and so on. And what is interesting for the ongoing collaborative projects is that these are collaborations between at least 2 universities that conduct research in this area, which also opens for academic PhD students to collaborate with PhD students at other universities and not work completely alone, but get a little bit more help through both having additional supervisor and then collaborators at other universities. To give you a little bit of an idea which companies are involved so far and ongoing collaboration between companies at universities, here there is a list of those that have been funded from the first call. So as you can see here, we have everything from automotive industry, classical, more classical IT, industries, but also industries that work a lot with perception, such as, for example, universities to be and so on. And then also, of course, we have SEB in the financial sector and so on. And this just shows about both the interest, but also of potential for applying the technologies in many different areas. And the titles also witness a little bit more about the application aspect of the technology, so that the focus is not solely on basic research, but that it has a portion of research, applied research. In the area of mathematics, as I said, it's also rather broad because it's everything from geometry to, again, statistical methods. And here is just some of the titles for the ongoing projects at different universities. As one can see, everything again from more basic mathematics to mathematics being applied on problems such as multi-agent systems, for example. And to finalize, why I think it's interesting, relevant, and of utmost importance to have industrial PhD program as a part of WASP is to, of course, being able to exchange knowledge and experience between academia and industry and make the best out of two words, of course. Apply, assess, and implement existing methods on new data that potentially can come from industry in cases where industry is maybe on the forefront of actually logging, saving the data. Then also, through the collaboration, identifying new types of problems that need new scientific methods to be developed, not to work in simulation maybe, but work on real actual problems that the industry is dealing with, And of course, as a more long-term goal, assessing the readiness of the technology, what is that can be deployed in actual physical consumer products and so on. So thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to Karl-Erik or Sten. So if you release the screen, then it's up. Then thank you very much.
Okay, and then it's my turn to share my screen. Okay, can you see the full screen?
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay, so I will speak a bit in general about the industrial PhD program in WASP. Anders showed you the overall structure with two parts, the autonomous systems and software part and the AI part. And then Danica spoke about the MLX, machine learning, deep learning part of WASP AI, and a little bit about the mathematical part of WASP AI. But I want to stress that the industrial PhD program in WASP AI is organizationally directly under WASP AI. So it doesn't have to be machine learning. It doesn't have to be mathematical aspects of AI. But it can, in principle, be any area of AI. But that said, one have to admit that the majority of the PhD students that are currently working here in AI, they are working on some area of machine learning. So here is another view of what the current WASP AI projects are about. So learning, that's the big word, model, deep, networks, neural, analysis, reinforcement, supervised, and so on. So this is essentially what the current projects are doing. When you think about whether your project idea fits into WASP AI or not, you should try to consider the following three proposal types. If you have a proposal where the main focus is development of new theory and methods for AI or machine learning, and where there is no strong emphasis on any particular application area, or where the results are so general that they can be applied to several application areas, then it fits very well into a WASP AI. So that's the first type. The second type, if you have a proposal where the main focus is development of new theory and methods for AI and ML, but it is within the context of a particular application, that's also perfectly fine, as long as the characteristics and requirements of these applications are such that they drive the development of new AI and machine learning methods or theory. So this also very good, fits well into WASP AI. The third case, if you have a proposal where the main focus is only to apply some existing machine learning method, for instance, on a application, but where you don't foresee that you will develop any new theory or methods in machine learning, then it doesn't fit very well into WASP AI at all. So, and then the likelihood that the proposal will be accepted is small. Okay, but one thing we also have to be clear of is that in general, industrial PhD student projects, they are slightly more applied in nature than university PhD student projects. Okay, so the research part is split up in two parts, AS and AI, and that also holds for the graduate school. So there are two tracks, the AS track and the AI track. And the call which you apply to decides which track the students belong to. And in this case, it's a WASP AI call. So the PhD students, the industrial PhD students here, they will belong to the AI track in the graduate school. And for each track, there is a mandatory course package, but the students can also take courses from the other track. So all courses are open to all WASP students. So when we accept students to WASP, we do it in intakes or calls or batches. So we started in 2016, had batch 1, accepted 62 PhD students, 24 university, 23 industrial, 15 affiliated. Then we had a second intake, 2018, accepted 52. We had the third, 2019, accepted 62. And now we have the fourth in 2020, accepted 60. And now we have the fifth call, which is the second AI call. So you are aiming for one of the parts of the 5th WASP AI call, the industrial PhD student call. Some words about Swedish PhD education. Doing a PhD means 4 years of study and research if you do it at full time. Normally, you don't do it at full time, you do it at 80% level, and that means that it takes 5 years. And those that are academic PhD students, they spend the remaining 20% on doing teaching. Whereas the industrial PhD student, they spend the other 20% at the company doing non-research related things. 4 years corresponds to 240 so-called high school credits. And of those credits, a considerable amount is course credits. Typically between 60 and 120 credits are courses. The actual number varies depending on department. Most departments in Sweden and most departments that are part of WASP, they have 90 credits for courses as a requirement. And that corresponds to 1.5 years of full-time studies. So the PhD student candidates that you find, they should be aware of this. That is 1.5 years going back to school, essentially. And then out of these 90 credits, normally the departments require that certain mandatory courses are included. And then WASP requires that 27 credits of WASP AI courses are included. And the rest is then the research and the PhD thesis. The courses typically have different objectives. One objective is to give the sufficient breadth of knowledge within a topic. There can be courses that should encourage cross-disciplinary skills. There can be deep courses that have the aim to give the relevant knowledge in order to do the particular research project. And there are general courses which aims to give you the skills that are needed for a future career, whether in industry or in academia. Things like ethics, writing skills, presentation techniques, and so on. Within the WASP AS track, the Autonomous Systems and Software track, the majority of the involved departments have a well-developed set of PhD courses that provides both depth and breadth. So therefore, the aim of the WASP AS courses is to give the cross-disciplinary breadth. Whereas in WASP AI, the majority of the involved departments do not have well-developed sets of PhD courses that provide depth. So therefore, for WASP AI, the goal has been to give depth courses in AI and machine learning. So there are slightly different philosophy in the different tracks of the graduate school. The mission is to, of course, to educate PhD with skills in strategical important disciplines within WASP, together with a broad knowledge of AI, autonomous systems, and software development. So the students, they should become knowledgeable researchers in these areas. They should form a strong sense of belonging to WASP, connecting them together. So forming a network of students that really know each other on a first name basis, not only when they study, but also afterwards when they continue their careers. That's very important for WASP. They should also get to know Swedish industry. So industrial visits is an important part of WASP. Then they should form a strong and valuable international academic industrial network. And there we have the industrial study visits and exchanges. International study visits and exchanges. And of course, they should strive for greatness. So WASP then will organize courses and activities that respect the needs of a heterogeneous group of students spread out over Sweden. So that's a challenge for WASP, to give courses that work also if you sit in Lund or if you sit in Umeå or wherever you are sitting in Sweden. And then WASP organize other types of activities to provide all this knowledge that we aim for. The course organization, most WASP courses, they run over 1 semester, and most of the courses are taken during the first 2 years. And a course typically consists of 2 or 3 physical meetings at some WASP university, typically 2-day meetings. And then in between these meetings and before these meetings, there is individual work at the home university or group work at the home university. And then there is some type of examination. It could be hand-ins or it could be something else. So the activities, the courses, I mentioned that. We have the summer schools. During 1 week, typically in mid to end August, we gather the students in the different batches. We have the winter conference in January, where all WASP PhD students meet during 2 or 3 days. This year we had 360 participants in Linköping. We have the international trip. So during the first year, we typically have a 1-week trip within Europe. The WASP AS students have been to Munich and Zurich, some of them. Some of them have been to Toulouse and Barcelona. This coming year, they will most likely go to UK. The WASP AI students started going to Germany last year. And then the second year, the students typically go outside Europe. So autonomous system students, they have been to California, some of them have been to Singapore. And the AI students, where they will go in 2020, that's not yet decided. And then during year 3 and 4, the students are free to organize their own group trips if they want to. So we provide funding for this. So if there are, say, 5, 6 students that want to visit some interesting companies, universities somewhere, they are free to do that if they organize it themselves, and we will provide the funding. Then it's also possible for the students to do exchange at some international top-level university, 3 to 6 months typically. And we have agreements with Stanford, Berkeley, Nanyang Technological University in Singapore, and some others, or others. You can also go to other. You don't have to go to these. And there's also possibility to fund shorter research visits. And then after the PhD, when they are ready, it's also possible to, if they are good enough, to get funding for doing an international postdoc somewhere. So that was the PhD program in general. And what I just have said typically applies to all PhD students, independently if they are industrial or academic. What I will change to now are information more about the industrial PhD program. So the reason for industrial PhD program in Sweden is that collaboration between industry and academia is considered of crucial importance for the dissemination of knowledge from research and development to industry and society at large. So the purpose of WASP's industrial PhD student program is to contribute to needs-driven research and to foster in-depth cross-fertilization between academia and industry, both in terms of relevant research results and availability of competence. And I would say that the last thing is probably the most important thing, availability of competence. So an industrial PhD student is employed by a company, but do the PhD students at some department of some of the WASP universities. Takes 4 years if it's done at full time, but that's very unusual. Mostly it's done at 80% level, taking 5 years. The companies, they receive 600K Swedish kronor per year from WASP if the student do this at full speed, which is unlikely, or 480K if the student do it in 5 years. And this includes a travel budget of 30K per year for visits to conferences, for visits to internal WASP meetings. But the international study trips comes outside this, so they are paid directly by WASP. And it's very important that the PhD student is allowed to travel. So even if the company has a travel ban, the students still must be able to participate and travel. And then the academic supervisor gets funding from WASP for the supervision, so that also comes outside.
Okay.
Someone is speaking, so please mute. Then the PhD student has always one university advisor and one industrial advisor. And the industrial advisor should ideally be a person with research experience, but it's not 100% necessary, but it's good if that is the case. And then the PhD student must spend at least 20% of the time physically at the university and at least 20% physically at the company. However, in practice, spending only 20% at the university, that's not enough. It won't work. Also, since the student have to spend time physically at the university, it is an advantage if it's not too far between the location of the university and the location of the company. So, I mean, if you are located close to Lund or Malmö, then it's an advantage to have your PhD student at Lund University, and the same for the others. Contract-wise, there is a contract between the company and the university, regulating things like IP and so on. But there is no contract between the company and WASP. Then there should be an individual development plan for the PhD student at the company that define things like who are the contact persons, supervisors, what is the role of the manager, and what is the role of this project in the overall company strategy. And then at the university, there will be an individual study plan for this PhD student that contains things like how much time has spent, which research results have been obtained, and so on and so forth. Currently, we have 79 industrial PhDs from 34 companies. Some companies have a very large involvement, like Ericsson, 10 PhD students currently, Saab 9, and so on. But most industries have only one PhD student. Research institutes like RISE and public organizations, they may not participate in WASP. And that is something that the Knut and Alice Wallenberg Foundation has decided. So that's nothing that we can decide here. When we say industry, one should have in mind that it's not only the traditional Swedish system industry, but it could be any industry: finance, media, medicine, consulting company, essentially whatever, as long as it's a company. You have seen the details about this call, I guess. The application deadline is April 3rd. There will be a decision by the board 14th of May. It will be communicated the 27th of May. The earliest start date is 1st of August, latest start date 1st of January 2021. And so to say, formal kickoff will be at the winter conference in January 2021. This call is budgeted for 15 industrial PhD students. I should have written that on the slide, but I didn't. So around 15, maybe a few more if there are very good proposals. You submit your applications through the WASP application portal and the application form available there. And this should be signed by both the academic and the industry supervisor. So you have to collaborate closely with the industrial supervisor when you write the proposal. Evaluation criteria, essentially 3 aspects: the project, the supervisors, and the PhD student candidate. So project, scientific excellence, visionary, novelty, relevance to AI and machine learning. Supervisors, scientific merits, international research experience, the potential to strengthen basic research within AI and machine learning, pedagogical skills and merits, track record for collaboration between academia and industry. And then the PhD student candidate, it's actually very much grades. So good grades is good. And then if you get a project approved, then that approval is conditioned by that it is this particular PhD student that do the work. So if for some instance your PhD student candidate changes his mind or her mind and want to do something else, that is the same as a rejection of the proposal. You don't have a second chance to find a new student. Elements of a good proposal should fit into the WASP AI research program, as I described in the beginning. Should be a clear and well-described scientific problem or research questions, some novelty aspect, explain why the applicants are the best parties to address this problem, how they complement each other, and then the added value that this gives to academia industry in Sweden. If you have further questions and need information, you should contact the local industrial contact person. And you see the names of these here. And they can also help you if you don't have so good contacts in university. They can help you find who is probably the most suitable university supervisor for this project that you are thinking about. Then some other questions and issues that could be good to know. For instance, how should you define a project topic? Well, it should be sufficiently long-term so that the results still are of value to the company after 5 years. And it must have sufficient depth for publications. How should we handle deviations? Something you have to have in mind that very few PhD students end up with a thesis that is exactly along the lines that were initially formulated. So deviations are normal, they do happen. And that is something that the company have to be aware of. So what is then a good PhD student candidate? Ideally, the best candidate is a candidate that already has a couple of years, 2-3 years experience from the company, but still have the graduate education fresh in mind. However, WASP do accept candidates which also have a shorter or longer experience. So that's fine. But normally what works best is a candidate that have a couple of years experience. Then the student should have good analytic competence, should be good at problem solving, and should be good at communication, oral and written. Good grades are important, in particular in the more theoretic courses, because many of the WASP AI courses, they are rather mathematical and theoretical in nature. That's important to know. You also have to be clear on what the objective is for the company. One objective can be to initiate a long-term collaboration with some leading research group in order to improve the company's innovation capabilities. That's often a very good objective. Another objective could be to solve some challenging problem or increase the knowledge within an area that is of relevance to the company. It could also be competence build-up for a promising employee, but that is often not such a good objective as the 3 first ones. Also, one objective could be to obtain persons with sufficient skills to take a leading role after 5 years, but you can never know if they are still there after 5 years. And the company should always be aware of the realities. So around 1.5 years is spent on full time on taking courses. And some of these courses may be of less interest to the company, but still they must be taken. And then we have all the travels, trips to conferences, summer schools, study trips, different meetings. These are important for the student in order to be able to discuss, present his or her results, and learn. And even if the company has a travel ban, these students must be able to travel. And then how should you guarantee that what the PhD student do remains to be relevant during these 5 years? Well, a good idea is to have a research-related shadow project at the company where intermediate research results can be evaluated and which can generate new research questions for the student. And then also try to formalize the knowledge transfer, for instance, using regular presentations by the PhD student at the company. How can we be sure that the student stays at the company afterwards? Well, you can't. That's the way it is. How do we start? Start by identifying the PhD student candidate and the academic supervisor. And if you don't have contacts, ask the university representatives. And then start the project discussions with the academic supervisor as early as possible, because he or she is the one that knows best which research problems fit into WASP AI and which do not fit. There is also a brochure that we have developed about industrial PhD students that you can find on our homepage. So there is more things, more issues to think about. So that was all for me, and then I switched to Amy, I think.
Yes, thank you very much, Karl-Erik. Amy, are you ready?
I am ready, yes. So let me just share my screen. Hopefully you hear me. Yes, so my name is Amy Lutfi, and welcome everybody, and thank you, Karl-Erik, for the very good presentation. Some of what I'll say has already been said, but I think it's worth repeating. So as Karl-Erik mentioned, there are 2 tracks within our graduate school, and I'll focus on the track that is the AI track. And as mentioned, the AI track has its own set of courses. There are mandatory courses, and you see the list of mandatory courses here. And the purpose of the mandatory courses is to provide deep and specialized knowledge within AI and ML. We have a course in deep learning and GANs, a course in graphical models, Bayesian learning, and statistical relational learning. learning theory and reinforcement learning, ethical, legal, and societal aspects of AI, and large-scale machine learning. So in total, the courses amount to approximately 30 ECTS credits. And we have a rolling system where the courses run at different intervals to take into account the fact that we're taking in students in batches. Now, as Karl-Erik mentioned, most PhD educations in Sweden require somewhere between 60 to 90 credits. It's almost 1.5 years of courses. And so in order to also give our students the possibility to take other courses, we have provided some elective courses. You see the elective courses listed here. And all of the courses, I should say, are available to all of the students within WASP. Now, I just want to put up an example of one of the courses. I'm not going to go through all of the content. You can read it and you'll get a copy of the slides. But I think what's worth lifting here is the fact that the courses are given in collaboration. So we usually bring teachers from different universities who put together a course package. And this may also mean that the students may travel to different universities throughout the same course. We try and minimize the amount of traveling, but there is some sort of traveling to get to their lectures. Something else that's also worth pointing out is that we're really trying to find the best teachers for those courses. So they're really interacting with some of the WASP researchers and getting state-of-the-art knowledge in their courses. So here you see some of the course content related to deep learning and GANs. And we're getting a student batch which is very heterogeneous. The students come in from different backgrounds. So we try and build some level of progression in the courses, but we also try and take into account the fact that we have varying backgrounds of the students. We also have, for example, in our course on large-scale machine learning, an industrial component. So yes, the courses are very theoretical and providing deep knowledge in topics, but we also want to have them anchored in reality. So for example, in large-scale machine learning, there's an industrial component where representatives from industry also can contextualize that knowledge. And finally, as another example, if you look at our course on ethical and legal and societal aspects of AI, most students within PhD programs get a course on ethics, but what we want to try and do here is give them a deep course on ethics related to AI. And again, as I said, getting sort of some of the leading experts in the field, in this case, it's Virginia Dignam from Umeå University and more, who can really teach this content to our students. Now, Karl-Erik mentioned that there are a number of different activities that occur within the graduate school. And I just want to lift some specific examples within the AI graduate school. So I talked about the courses. As we mentioned, we have also the WASP conferences, and these we expect the students, both the academic students and industrial students, to attend the WASP conferences. At the winter conference, for example, there's usually a poster session, so students can become familiar with what their colleagues are doing. We also have a summer school. The summer school is a 1-week-long summer school. And last year we ran the summer school with the theme of modern topics in AI. And this year we'll run it again with the same theme. We value the summer school to also be about 1.5 credits, so that can count towards the education. And for example, last year we took up topics such as causality and fairness in AI, but we also took up industrial perspectives. The summer school is also an opportunity for students to have a hands-on experience where we do almost like a hackathon-like exercise where they get to work on different challenges. We also have an international study trip that was mentioned. Typically, the study trip takes place in October of every year and is also 1 week. Last year, the study trip was to Germany, where a number of different sites were visited. And it's about visiting sort of the leading AI groups, getting a chance to interact with leading AI researchers from other countries, but also PhD students who are maybe in the same similar position as our own PhD students. And this year we're planning again for the study trip to happen in October, and we're looking at different locations where, for example, Canada is very high on the list. And finally, this is my last slide. There is a management group for the AI graduate school, and it's here where we try and get feedback from the students, where we can improve the course content, where we try and find synergies between courses, and where we also take into account feedback from industry so that we really make a graduate education that's relevant for all of our PhD students. So that was my last slide, and I will pass the word on to Salla, who will also give some experiences from industry and from the grad school.
Great, thank you very much, Amy. So now we will see if we have Sivan and Salla online, if we can get their sounds going. Can you unmute yourself now?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Very good. So we're going to share the screen. Hi, everyone.
We are getting a lot of an echo from you. So do you have to speak?
Is it better now?
Let's see if I can mute all and then unmute you again. Okay. Okay. Okay, now unmute yourself.
Is that better?
Yes, now we're good. Thank you.
Okay, good. It's better on our side as well. I don't have to hear myself. So can you see my screen?
Yes, you may want to switch to presentation mode so you can.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Very good.
Yep. Thanks. So hi everyone on the call. My name is Salla Franzen. I'm the Chief Data Scientist at SEB, and next to me is who's an industrial PhD student. And we're just going to talk a little bit about our experience in the program. So first, a quick SEB, who we are. For those who don't know on the call, we're the leading Nordic financial services group. So we're a bank that's been around for 150, 160 years. We have a lot of different offerings. And we have a strategic focus. We have strategic focus areas that all of them really sort of contain a lot of different artificial intelligence components. And I think for the bank, the sort of best part about the WASP AI program existing is the fact that we have this wonderful possibility to start collaborating with different very talented researchers and to really sort of enable artificial intelligence in finance, and at the same time try to give something back to the research community, because this is an area where things are happening very fast, and if we don't keep in touch with research, then we believe that we're going to start slowly to fall behind. So this is our view on banking in 2025. I just included it because it says AI will be embedded in nearly all products. I'm sure everybody's aware of the fact that this is probably quite a lot of hype, but there are definitely areas where AI will enable a better, I guess, life for us as humans. So, you want to put this back? Yeah, so this is just a short thing about me. I guess I'm going to switch slides actually, because this is the old version and I apologize for that. You want to apologize, you can go next to me. Let's see.
We do not have video of the two of you, so it would have been nice to see a picture of you at least, Salla. Yeah. Would have been nice to see a picture.
Oh, yes, sorry. I'll see if I can do that. It's here. I'll start a video for a short time. and then we'll see if the internet starts to shake. So please let me know if it makes it sort of start to lag, because sometimes that happens. So hi everyone, I'm Salah, and that's Johan.
Yes, standing by.
Yes. Yes, so back to the presentation. Can you see a slide that says choosing a research subject now?
Yes, that works fine. Yeah, your sound is a little bit choppy, but we can live with it.
Yeah, yeah, so maybe if I turn off the video, it will be better.
I don't think it makes a difference, but it's up to you.
Okay, then we try like this. Yeah, so I mean, the way that we started 2 years ago when we got our first industrial PhD student, Hanna Hultin, was that we really started with our business, thinking about where can artificial intelligence really benefit the business. And on the right-hand side, you see an XKCD comic strip, which I think is quite illustrative of the sort of potential issue that many businesses can have. And it's the understanding of what is easy and what is difficult, what is research and what is not, what is just applying existing methods, and what is actually an interesting question where we can collaborate with academics. So I have a background in mathematics, so I think for me it's relatively easy. Of course, we have very talented individuals in the company as well who actually maybe don't have a research background, and for them it becomes an important question. If we're to apply for money from WASP, then we want to be sure that it's something that will give something back to the research community as well. So my suggestion is that you start with your business and you look at your business strategy and you think about where can AI really benefit the business. And the second step is then to connect with experts. That can be in-house, it can be in the different academic areas that Amy has talked about. We have loads of really, really talented researchers in Sweden that you can talk to. If the focus is just on applying an existing technique, then it's probably not a research question, then you can just do it. There are consultants, there are different individuals, there are schools that are training people that can help you to apply an existing technique. If the focus is on developing existing techniques, then it may be a research question. It can be that you're trying to, I don't know, apply some sort of reinforcement learning, and there are technical questions that are interesting from a research viewpoint as well. The cool part about the AI initiative is that it's MLX, which is applications of machine learning, but it's also very much about the sort of base research. So any kind of question that is interesting from a research viewpoint may be applicable for an application for WASP. And of course, if the focus is on exploring completely unknown areas of AI techniques, then it probably is well suited for WASP. I mean, the idea with the whole program is to see to it that Sweden continues to be a leading industrial society. And in order for that to happen, we have to have good research subjects to focus on, so that we focus on things that are applicable for different industries. So how do you choose an industrial supervisor? If you're an industrial supervisor, you probably have to have an interesting research question so that you can actually attract an academic supervisor that's excellent and that can help you in the collaboration that you start. You need to have an excellent candidate. We were super fortunate because we have this guy and we also have Hanna. And it's so wonderful to collaborate with these super talented individuals who come with an academic mindset and really are interested in understanding new theories and doing groundbreaking things. No pressure. But also try to have reasonable expectations. I mean, it's all about a journey. It's about creating, giving talented individuals the time to grow. It's about sort of finding new fields that may be applicable for your business, but don't expect the PhD student to come in and be a leading researcher from day one. That's not fun. It needs to be fun for the academic PhD students as well. Otherwise, they're just going to get too much pressure. Yeah, we'll see what Johan feels in a bit. And then you need to have some sort of a long-term vision for how the research is going to benefit not just your business, but also the academic research fields within the WASP AI program. And now I hand over.
Yes. So, guess you can hear me as well. Right. So I'm just going to assume you can. I'm going to switch back to my slide since we had a bit of a version control conflict here. Right. Yeah. So as Salah said, my name is Johan Ceylon, and I don't think you mentioned my supervisor at KTH. It's Florian Pokorny. And yeah, a bit about me. I did engineering physics at KTH. So I have a civilingenjörsexamen in that field. And then I did my master in computer science and engineering with specializing on machine learning. And yeah, if you're interested to know more about that, you can look at my master thesis. But more about my research topic. So when I first started discussing to do a PhD here at SEB, this anti-money laundering scandal at Swedbank was very much fresh. And SEB had been thinking about, okay, maybe we need to look into like research in which we can take this in the future. So this is like where my project come in. Sorry, is there someone? Okay. Okay. So the idea is that we want to apply some anomaly detection and especially using topological methods and graph-based methods, which so far haven't been developed. So that's what I'm going to do during my PhD, to try to basically find the new methods which use machine learning to counter this money laundering, guys. Yes. So I started working here at SEB in June last year, and then I started my PhD in October. So I guess I'm on the front of, Karl-Erik said that ideally one should work like 2 years or something. So I guess I'm a bit shorter. But so far I think that's been quite okay for me. And like a normal work week for me, then I spend 2 days at SEB and 2 days at KTH. And then I keep 1 day flexible to alternate between them, depending on what's the agenda for the week. I have 1 group meeting at SEB and 1 group meeting at KTH, and I do a weekly or bi-weekly supervision with both my supervisor. So this gives me, both input from my PhD colleagues at KTH and my colleagues at SEB, and input from both my supervisor every week, which I think is very good. And I think, yes, Karl-Erik was very clear, like it's a maximum of 20% work at the SEB. So even though I spend 2 days a week here, I spend those days mostly focusing on my PhD, though there's also been some work mixed into that. So last semester I took, so during the whole PhD, I have to take 60 credits at the KTH. And this is dependent from department to department. So depending on where you would send your possible industrial PhD candidate, this number of credits might be different. But for my whole 5 years of PhD, I have to do 60 credits. And the last semester I did 13.5, and this semester I'm planning to do 12. So already that is sort of a 40%-ish workload, which is quite useful to know that if, in the beginning of a PhD, the PhD student will take quite a lot of courses. And if you do maximize that 20% work, then the amount of time that and including meetings, then the amount of time that the PhD student will do research in the beginning will be quite low. But this will most likely add up later into the PhD program.
And I think it makes sense to start by studying, because typically you may have some things that you need to learn before you can get started, and it's a good way to just get used to being a PhD student, because it can be quite overwhelming otherwise.
Right. And in addition to that, I'm also supervising 1 master student. This might expand. So I think I'm not 100% sure if supervising master students is taken into account as teaching, but I think for PhD students it's also very useful to have master students, because it both means that you get some experience in like how to explain to others, focus your research and see how can I make this into a project which someone with a bit less skill than me can work on. And it's also helpful for delegating your own work, that I only have so much time to implement algorithms, and if I can delegate some of that time to a master student, and that's very useful for me. And yeah, and all the rest of the time is then mostly spent on reading papers at the moment, but then eventually I will be running more experience as my project gets a bit more solidified. So far, there's been a lot of positive experience of being an industrial PhD. So foremost is that I get to work on these like real world problems, which SEB, these are problems which SEB would like to solve and which will help them in their business and ultimately also help the customers of STB. And this is something, if you're a pure academic PhD researcher, it's not 100% sure that you'll get to do that. It could be instead that you get assigned some quite theoretical project, which at this point it could be hard to see what will be the real world benefit of this in the end. Even though there probably are some benefits, it could be hard to see that. And yeah, as this also includes like doing research people care about. And this is also very good that working at SEB, I get access to unique data sets, which, maybe no other researcher in the world has access to. So this gives the opportunity to do some quite unique research. Yeah, I also get to learn the production system at SEB, and this is also, if I, after my PhD, want to go and work in industry, then it's very useful to get to learn, all this production stuff already during your PhD. Maybe if you're, someone who's already been employed at the company a longer time, maybe know all this, but you also get to stay, up to date with what's the development of production system, like what's the new thing which the companies are using. While if you're only in academia, then you might miss out on that. Yeah, I get double the amount of supervision, so that's very good for getting feedback from both sides of industry and academia. And I also get access to both colleagues at KTH, which have so the research perspective and maybe know the state of the art very well. But I also get access to colleagues at SEB, which know like, okay, how can this be integrated into production system? What's realistic to do considering what the resources we have at SEB and so on. And yeah, I also get employee benefits since I'm at SEB. So this is something which is very nice, personally. And I also thought this should go through some pitfalls, and I think already Carl-Erik and Salla have touched upon these, but I thought I would give my perspective of, this is something which we already from the start were very aware of and worked on avoiding. But if you're only doing your first industrial PhD, these are some ideas like what I could see it would be very challenging if I ended up in that situation. The first one is conflicting supervision. So say that your industrial PhD supervisor is not synced with your academic one, and they ask every meeting you have with them, they say you should do a completely different thing from what the other guys say. And this can be very frustrating because either you will have to take the fight with someone and say, yeah, I don't care that you say that, I'm going to do this other thing. Or you have to play some sort of diplomat and try to find a sort of middle of the road solution, which then might being the worst of both worlds instead of the best of both worlds. And yeah, this also goes into possible disagreements, what should the PhD be about. So my academic supervisor suggested to me that maybe I should do some teaching, and then I had to tell him no, because I'm a WASP industrial PhD student, I don't actually have to do teaching. And then he said, okay, he accepted that. But some other supervisors, if you haven't discussed all of this in beforehand, then there might be some different expectations that the academic supervisor is really excited to put this new PhD student straight on teaching some course or something. So I think it's very important to have good contact with university supervisors to make sure that everything is synced. Yeah, and if the problem statement wouldn't have been research material, you can very quickly run into you find a paper doing exactly the thing which you have set up 5 years to do, and then basically your whole PhD has reduced to an engineering task because someone already did it. So I think it's very important to make sure you formulate the project in a way which is actually open and not solved. Also very important to make sure that the work can be published, because if you as PhD student can't publish what you do, say the models or the data, then it's very difficult to publish, to be accepted to the major conference, which is crucial for actually getting your PhD finished in the end. Something to think about, okay, can we publish the data we're using? Can we publish the models, or can we do at least some version of this? Maybe you don't have to do it all the way, but at least something has to be published. And yeah, this also goes back to what I said before, you can't expect this PhD student to do all the engineering tasks, which maybe they did when they were working at the company, and also still have time to do the research. research take a lot of time, and it's a lot of trial and error, and you need to have time for that. Yeah, and that's it for us, I think.
Yep. We hope this was useful for the people on the call.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much. With an additional grant to buy a new microphone.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I'm now going to mute everyone, and then I would like all the speakers to unmute so that we can move into the Q&A sessions here. And also unmute your camera so that all the speakers are seen. So Karl-Erik, if you can unmute yourself. Camera view, Amy is there, and Danny is there. And if we get everyone online here, very good. Karl-Erik, are you still there with us?
I'm still there, but I cannot show my video because the host has stopped it.
Ah, the host has stopped it. Let's see. So while
but it doesn't matter. But Anders, there is a very bad echo now in your sound.
And Sivan, who is creating this echo for us. So very good. While I unmute your camera, so we pick up on the first question here. The first question that was is regarding the restrictions on the collaborating universities and which ones, where the academic advisor should come from. So if any one of you picks up on that question while I'm unmuting Karl-Erik, please.
I can take it. You can have any supervisor that belongs to any of the 5 core universities in WASP. And that is KTH, Chalmers, Linköping, Lund, and Umeå. So any supervisor from those 5 is okay. And then additionally, supervisors from the AI group at Örebro University are okay. And supervisors from Thomas Schön's group at Uppsala are okay. And supervisors from the mathematics department at Uppsala are okay. So those are the ones that can participate.
All right, very good. And then we have another question here regarding the PhD candidate. Must the candidate be employed at the company? And I say that the answer is yes to that question, right?
It depends. Not before 1st of January 2021.
Right. Yes.
So when they apply, the PhD student doesn't have to be employed. Mm-hmm. But at the last starting date, 1st of January 2021, he or she has to be employed.
Mm-hmm. And that was actually the question that came a little bit later, and that was my follow-up question. So you do not have to be employed when you put in the proposal, but the 1st of January 2021 you have to be, yes.
But I also mentioned that if you for some reason lose your PhD candidate, let's say that you have an interesting master thesis student that you have talked to, and this person would like to become employed at your company and would like to do a PhD, industrial PhD. And if you have that in when the deadline is for the proposals, if you then get your proposal accepted, and then in after the summer this guy loses interest, then that is the same as saying that your whole proposal is rejected.
Correct. Mm-hmm. We have a question from master students at KTH. Does the PhD application have to find the industrial supervisor and the academic supervisor and also propose the topic? I would say that it's not primarily the applicant, the PhD applicant, it's rather the advisors who are the people who initiate this process. But of course, yes, you do have to have all that in place when there's a proposal being submitted in response to this call. Yes. Then we have a follow-up question on this restriction. Where does this restriction come from? I would like to choose a supervisor from another group at Uppsala University. Who wants to pick up on that one?
I would say that it comes from the WASP board.
Yes. So WASP has originally been set up between a number of universities that were asked to host the WASP from the funding agency, and then there's been small additions to that, but it's not covering all academic institutions in the country, and certainly not all universities. So in that perspective, it's a program that has an element of exclusiveness in itself, with a pre-selection after a proposal of the advisors that are available. Okay, then we have a question from AstraZeneca in the UK. I assume that you will need a collaborator based in one of our Swedish sites like Gothenburg to be involved, or are you able to work directly with companies overseas?
No.
Has to be Sweden, yes.
Has to be, and in particular, the PhD student has to be physically present at the Swedish university 20% of the time.
Yeah. Then there's a question about whom to contact for AI and data sourcing. Amy or Dani, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, Danita, maybe you want to take that. I would suggest that they contact you, Danny.
Yeah, no, I'm just kind of like looking and trying to actually understand what the question is. So
I have a very okay. Do you see the text? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but maybe the easiest thing is actually to just directly email me, and then we can have a discussion.
And since Gothenburg was mentioned, so if it's Chalmers that you're interested in, then you can also talk to Ivica Chankovic at Chalmers.
Then there's a message from Oscar about the graduate program. 1.5 years of full-time study seems to be a very long time to me. Is there any way to compensate the credits? Amy, I think that's for you.
Yeah, so it does vary from university to university. Not all universities have 1.5 years. Some universities have 1 year. Is there a way to reduce or compensate? I honestly cannot give a very clear answer, because again, it depends on the university where the person is registered. Some universities, you know, if you've done extra sort of education outside of what is required to enter graduate studies, there could be mechanisms that allow you to compensate or transfer credits, but I have to say that many universities are quite restrictive about this. So I would say there are not so many ways to bypass the course requirements.
Right. Yes. Then we have a question regarding the definition of a company. Privately owned, is a research institute like SNHI and RISE definitely out of the question? And the answer is, without using a double negative, is yes. We are institutes, governmental agencies are not eligible in this call. It's only the companies that we are addressing. Yes. Okay. Okay, then it's more of a comment rather than the questions. How have industry...
There is a question. How have industry academic developed the contracts?
Right. Yes.
I would say that typically the different universities, they have their standard contracts for industrial PhD students, and that is then used as a starting point for negotiations between the legal department at the company and the legal department at the university.
Yeah. Then there's a direct question to Salla. How established was the data science experience at SEB when you started with the one PhD? In other words, what was your supervision skills within the AI domain established? So do you want to pick that one up?
Yes, please let me know if it starts to echo again. Yeah, so I mean, when we started the whole sort of WASP initiative, we had a couple people in the bank. So I'm not the supervisor of the first person, that's in trading. We have one PhD from financial mathematics and one person who's been working in the bank forever and knows sort of modeling from the ground and up. And that was kind of the perfect place to start because we had a wonderful candidate and we had really good supervisors, both from our side and from KTH. So we felt very safe to start the journey there. The second person is advised by me, which is also really good because then we can focus on strategically important areas. And I would say that the data science competence in the bank has been established for many years. About 5 years ago, we started to work with this in a more structured manner. So we have 130 people in our data science community, which is a really good place for sourcing talented individuals as well. But it is important to have some sort of a structure and some sort of a think and a vision on what it is you want to attain with the PhD students, especially if you don't already have a research and development department.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I think we're running out of questions on the list here. Let's see. Now there's another one coming in here. Okay. For a PhD student who has obtained his/her licentiate degree in machine learning, is the graduate program flexible enough for such an individual to finalize the second part of their PhD under WASP? Amy or Danny, that sounds like a question for you.
I suppose that again depends on the university. One of the questions will of course be related to the courses that the person has taken and to what extent extra courses are needed or anything like that, and to what extent that can be in line with the syllabus that the grad school has. But I have seen this happening before at KTH, for example, not inside WASP. So I don't think that we had any examples like that.
And maybe I can just add something. So it's important to keep in mind that WASP doesn't issue course credits. WASP says that a course should be worth a certain amount of credits, but ultimately it is the academic supervisor that makes the decision to issue the credits, and then the credits come into the system. So as Denise was saying, you know, a lot of these kinds of questions really depend on the university where you're located and the discussion that you have with the academic supervisor.
Correct. Then we have a follow-up question regarding the constellation between the academic and industrial supervisors and the student, and I think the answer is that ideally what you need to have is that in the proposal the candidate should be named in the proposal, so that it's really like a three-party proposal between the academic advisor, the industrial supervisor, the company, and the candidate as well. That should be mentioned by name. So it's not a grant and then recruitment of a student afterwards. Okay, that was the answer to KTH. Okay, then we have a question to SEB regarding GDPR. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so we're a bank. So we have a very structured way of working with data privacy and data protection. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why it's better for us to have an industrial PhD student than a regular research PhD student, because Johan, as an employee of the bank, has to adhere to the bank law. Intellectual property is very well defined in the contracts that we've signed between KTH and WASP and ourselves. So I hope Johan feels secure in the clarity of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, then there's a question for Danica. I guess there are restrictions for the academic supervisor. Are supervisors with an ongoing WASP project eligible? What about more junior academic supervisors as main applicants?
So right now we actually don't have any constraints or any restrictions in terms of if you have an ongoing WASP project or anything like that. Of course, you can be a supervisor of an industrial PhD student. We actually think that this is also good, because then you can enlarge potentially if there is some related topic to what you're already doing in the ongoing collaborative project. What we do look into, if I can say, is that if the main supervisor already has 18 PhD students, we may kind of like raise our eyebrow whether the 19th PhD student would still get any supervision time. So we look more into how big currently the group is, just ensuring that there will be time for supervision. That's important. And then when it comes to seniority, it's extremely important for us that we get both junior and senior supervisors. I think that having that diversity is actually very important for WASP. So we definitely encourage junior supervisors with a docent title, of course.
Yeah, that's the main thing. I mean, they cannot be so junior that they don't have a docent.
Yeah, they need to have a docent title. They need to have a formal supervision right.
Another question to SEB and to Sala. Did you include WASP in the collaboration contract, or two separate contracts, or as Anders said, between industry and university?
Yeah, so I know that we signed a contract between KTH and us. And then, of course, there are some sort of requirements for us in order to be able to have a PhD student in the WASP program. I was a bit unclear there. Thank you for asking for clarification.
But one can say that there is no contract between the company and WASP.
No, this is true. Okay, then we have another question from Konstantin at Volvo. Is cross-industry collaboration something that is encouraged?
Yeah, I would say that it would be interesting, although so far I think that companies were not so extremely interested in collaborating due to all sorts of NDAs and IP protection reasons and so on. I think that would be really, really good. So if two companies are part of the same ecosystem and already collaborate and so on, that would be good. It's an added value. I mean, however, there will be one main employer, I suppose, of the potential PhD candidate, and it will be then that company that is the main applicant for the industrial PhD student position.
Mm-hmm. I would certainly agree with that. As long as you can have a clean IPR situation between all the partners, I think it's added value to have multiple companies involved. Yeah.
Mm.
Great. Okay. Then we get a very encouraging personal comment at the end here. So thank you very much for posting that. We are really keen on making this a success, and hope that you have obtained information that enables you to gauge the opportunities that we are providing with this call. We're very much looking forward to proposals. Are there any final comments from the speakers here? Maybe we should just have a brief final word from all of you.
There was an additional question.
All right. Okay. During your early meeting, is it possible to industry to discuss or present to encourage cross-industry work? Yes, of course. Yes. And there's a special event coming up, the industry academic days in May. Dates the 11th and 12th of May. An event focusing on the industry and academia exchange. So that will keep an eye open for that.
And regarding then the final question, whether there is or will be collaboration between the participating companies, it's not something that WASP actually works actively on, but most of the companies, well, or many that are involved in WASP already have an ongoing collaboration in some form from before. So we know that Saab and Ericsson have a long history of collaborating. SE Bank can also collaborate with several other companies and so on. So what we see that once in this network, it's definitely possible to either build upon already ongoing collaboration or definitely build new ones through PhD students.
Then one can also say that in the other track of WASP, there is something called WASP demonstration arenas.
Yeah.
they are formally also part of WASP AI. And in those arenas, in particular in one of them, the companies, they do collaborate. And in that arena, it's Saab, Ericsson, and Axis Communications that collaborate quite a lot.
Right. So I think we're sort of emptied out the backlog of questions here now. So any final words, Amy, from your side?
No, I don't think I have much to add. We're looking forward to getting a lot of high quality applications.
Yeah, the same.
Yes.
Yes.
And SEB is looking forward to having more contacts as well. So thanks
Yes.
for providing us with the experience of actually doing it. I think that helps a lot to actually see examples of how it actually can happen in real life as well. So I think with that, I would like to thank everyone for joining in and staying with us. We had surprisingly few technical issues. So the first time we do a webinar in a distributed manner between multiple sites. I think it worked well for us. And I will make this video recording of the whole session available after a few edits. And I will post that on the WASP page. So thank you everyone for joining, and I wish you all a very good weekend. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.